Teacher was killed this day last year while running along the Grand Canal in Tullamore. This evening's ceremony is taking place in Mount Bolus and will feature music from the traditional Irish group Aisling played with as a child. Her long-term boyfriend Ryan Casey shared a tribute to Aisling on social media today, describing her as forever his soulmate. That's it for now. We'll have more in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. No weekend plans? We'll fix that with flights to Barcelona, Lisbon or Madrid.
Heavy outbreaks of rain will spread eastwards across the country this evening as winds become strong and gusty. Highs of 9 degrees Celsius. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Start your day in flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
All right, you're welcome along. It is Thursdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock. We've got a busy show coming up. Brian O'Driscoll in studio after 8 o'clock. Not in studio, I don't even know why I said that. He was live from his home on Zoom. Good start, wasn't it? He's going to be talking about a lot of things. Owen Farrell, his suspension is still making the headlines. We'll chat about that. The form of the provinces over the Christmas. Ben Healy's move away from Munster. And also the news that Ronan O'Gara, back in 2006, made a call to Brian O'Driscoll and said, "Hey Brian, you know, things aren't going at Leinster. You're not winning any Heineken Cups at the moment. You're not really contending for Heineken Cups. I know you're thinking maybe France, maybe the south of France, maybe a move away from Leinster. How's about you come and join me at Munster?" Which I'd never actually heard before. And Brian O'Driscoll, as we now know, said, "Your grand thanks, Ronan." Stuck with Leinster, and the rest is quite literally history. So that's coming up after 8 o'clock. John Giles from 7:30, and on the football show we'll be looking ahead to some big derbies in the WSL and in the Premier League as well. We have got Spurs against Arsenal live for you on Sundays Off the Ball. Richie McCormack, good evening.
Evening, Nathan. How are you?
I'm alright. Joe Malloy, how are you?
Nathan, great to be in studio with you. Evening.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I'm so used to just pretending about things these days. I just went with it. How are you?
Very well. Speaking of interesting, what could have been moments, a la Brian O'Driscoll, Ron O'Gara, I was just listening to Alistair Campbell's podcast with Rory Stewart.
Yes.
They were talking about, well, he who shall not be named, Prince Harry. Who isn't talking about Prince Harry? And Alistair Campbell was asked by Rory Stewart, "Did you ever ghostwrite a book in your time?" And Alistair Campbell said, "No, I'd have no interest in it." Roy Keane's agent phoned me and asked me to look into working on his book, but it wasn't for me.
Wow. The first one or the second one?
He didn't specify. I would presume, given that Alistair Campbell was a very busy man around the time of the first one. He had things going on. I would think the second. And come on in, Roddy Doyle. So there you go.
Wow. Alistair Campbell, Roy Keane, Richie. I don't know.
I like the sound of it. And brings a whole new meaning to the term New Labour. I did like. Does that mean Roddy was his second choice? Is that what we're revealing here?
This is the interesting question. He was quite clearly looking for a non-sports journalist. That much is clear. If he's gone for Campbell and Roddy Doyle, he seemed to really like Doyle. Maybe it was a sound out a few people and I'll see what the chemistry's like. Have a conversation type phone call.
Is there a third book in Roy Keane?
I think the question is, will he get to 5?
Yeah.
You think?
He will, yeah. I'd like there's at least one.
What's
more.
the next
there's
angle?
At least one more.
And what's the next? Who's the next ghostwriter? Because it needs to again be somebody who takes it in an entirely different direction.
He could go the way of Ferguson in his last one, in the last of his 15, however he's released, where about leadership and stuff like that. You basically go.
Roy's not writing a book on leadership. There's no chance Roy's writing a book on leadership.
He's always talking about leaders and wanting men out there.
He's not explaining it. He's just saying
people to be at it. Well,
given the talk of much of this week, Tommy Tiernan can't even get under the man's skin. I think we bring in Mo Ringer. If he can get Prince Harry to talk about some of the things he's talked about, it's our last shot at really getting under the skin of Roy Keane.
You're buying the book, Joe?
I think that's very possible. Yeah, I think that's very possible. Mainly on the back of the ghostwriter, who is so stunningly good that I think it'll make it worthwhile.
The Harry one?
You know what? I have a worry here, fellas. Prince Harry aside from a moment, park your Prince Harry talk. I do feel, having looked at the latest press release from Netflix, as if Drive to Survive is spawning an endless slew of, I'm going to say, questionable follow-ups. So we talked about the golf version, which is coming up, Nathan.
Yeah.
Neither of us were very impressed with the trailer. It was a worrying trailer. So on the horizon, they have Breakpoint, which is the tennis version of Drive to Survive. Then they have Full Swing, which is the golf version. Then naturally they have Drive to Survive Season 5. Then they have Heart of Invictus coming this summer. This is an Archwell production, which is Harry and Meghan. This is all about the Invictus
Harry
games.
invented the Invictus Games.
He did indeed, yeah. And now I'm sure we've all seen photos of Meghan and Harry giving athletes involved a big hug with a camera crew 2 feet away and a guy holding a sound boom. And, you know, it's that kind of a thing.
Don't be cynical
also,
about that, Joe.
There's no...
They said the Invictus Games are, a very good thing.
They are a very good thing. Harry and Meghan leveraging the publicity to get 100 million from Netflix, I'm less sure about. Untitled as of yet, but a Tour de France docu-series coming your way this summer as well about the 2022 tour. The Six Nations 2023 will be coming at you in 2024. So again, it's the Drive to Survive. The same producers, they're doing the Six Nations treatment.
These guys are busy.
Couple of weeks. And untitled as of yet, but FIFA World Cup 2022 coming at you in the summer of 2023. This was all the Netflix press release. It is endless. It is endless. And I do think there is a chance we'll be sitting around in about a year's time saying, my God, Drive to Survive really did unleash an endless slew of questionable quality documentaries. I hope I'm proved massively wrong, but the golf documentary just had a theme of, it's really hard to win. It's really hard to win. Just players saying that over and over again. And I could not think of a more bland or less revealing theme. That's what they say after every round anyway. So that worried me.
I've no doubt that Adrian Barry and Colin Buhig will put that to the producers of Breakpoint, the Netflix tennis documentary, when they're on the show tomorrow morning. The reviews of that are somewhat mixed. Again, the expectations now for all of these documentaries are so high. And what made Drive to Survive such a success, there's no guarantees that transfers to any of these other sports.
No.
And like I was making the point with Full Swing, the golf version that's coming out next month, it's not aimed at the Golf Weekly audience. Like, I saw one of the main American golf writers making the point that this is golf's biggest opportunity to grow the game, that quote they love. They don't grow the game by just showing the good stuff to the guys who are watching already. This is actually, you're a sort of fair weather fan on a Sunday night, you might watch that, you might watch the American football, you might watch something else on Netflix. Actually, come and watch the golf. They've sold it obviously on, we have Ian Poulter. I'm still not sure that Ian Poulter doesn't just disappear 4 months into this when he signs for Liv, and that's the last we see of Ian Poulter on this. And likewise, Rory McIlroy takes the big seat right at the very end. Oh, Rory is going to talk. Like, Rory always talks. Rory never stops talking. There's nothing Rory McIlroy hasn't said over the past year. If they can somehow get something new out of Rory McIlroy, I'll be astonished. But again, the trailer,
it was really
bland.
Worrying. So bland, so worrying. Like, not only you say it's the Drive to Survive format is no guarantee of success. Not only is it no guarantee of success, the format is generally terrible. Sports people in real time with camera crews around generally hasn't worked. Drive to Survive being a rare exception. So it's quite interesting they've taken a format that generally doesn't work, that doesn't have Gunter, who is mic'd up at all times, in a sport where they're pretty open with the media anyway. Like, you have drivers being interviewed on the grid at the best of times. That's just an aspect of the sport. They're more open to the media in that way, unlike other sports. But you take Gunter, who's mic'd up, who's a brilliantly combustible character, and he's rowing, and he's saying how much he hates that guy over there and all the rest of it. I'm holding my breath. We had heard that the golf version was very, very good, but now increasingly the more I think about it, hearing that from people almost directly involved. So we'll see. Like with the golf thing, it doesn't need to be explosive, but it needs to be, I was saying to you even on the podcast that there's, a fairly healthily populated prayer group on the PGA Tour. I'd love a look in at that and see how that operates,
Well, we did imagine the scene of they go to Scotty Scheffler and Zach Johnson talking about prayer group, and then it just flicks to Brooks Koepka raising his eyes to heaven in between.
Maybe shouting nerds. But that would be genuinely quite interesting, them getting into their faith. Or like there's a shot of Ian Poulter, the best, the most intimate shot in the trailer is Ian Poulter like throwing something in the locker room. But look, he's performative at the very best of times. See the whole thumping of the chest, even in the Ryder Cup. So him performing for a camera isn't really going to overly grab me, I would think. What I was hoping to see in the trailer was like Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, who are good friends, mic'd up, forgetting they're mic'd up almost like Gunter does in Drive to Survive, and one of them saying, man, I can't believe I'm playing with so-and-so again. He's so slow, or he's so this, or that. And look, that's particularly, that would be unbelievable. But some more along those lines, that candid stuff, whereas I feel like they're all very aware when they're on camera and will be it'll just be interview based, just based on the trailer. And I'm wondering, Drive to Survive been such a success. I wonder, will we remember it as still unsurpassed in a couple of years?
What they have to work with for the golf, they couldn't have picked a better year. Like, golf has never been more interesting. Yeah. And you're right. Do we see inside the locker room from Rory at the Open Championship? Do we see inside the locker room even with Mito Pereira as he blew up?
Yeah.
Do we have the video when the live guys are walking along the range after the Phil Mickelson interview, and the Phil Mickelson interview is released and Dustin Johnson has to backtrack and say, I'm never going to go? Like, is it built? How much are the PGA Tour going to allow this be about live, which is the most interesting part of the entire year? As you went through that list, it's sort of, the expectation levels went down rapidly, Richie. The behind the scenes on the Six Nations, again, like, there's always some interest in what goes on when, down in Carton House for the 4 months the players are there. I'm not sure it's actually that exciting. A lot of players sitting around drinking coffee all day. And the World Cup one, it's going to be a lot of Salt Bay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
he's going to be back in our lives.
Does it lend itself more, these documentaries, to the individual sport?
Yeah,
because
big time.
Because you're talking about 6 teams where they've got 30 odd in a squad each, and it's just way too diffuse to get anything of real interest and substance out of them. Whereas if you concentrate on a certain number of golfers and then control it in the edit afterwards and get the good stuff, like I've no doubt they'll actually get really good stuff and really good entertaining stuff from the tennis ones and from the golf documentaries over the course of the next few weeks. The team sports one is where I worry, because it's too hard to angle out. Like, people are kind of, whatever about people performing in front of the cameras, they're really, careful about how they would perform in front of the cameras around other teammates. Now, unless you're getting them one-on-one, it's a different story. But yeah,
I think, Rich, as well, don't you have, again, I much prefer interviewing individual sports people. I'm sure you're both the same.
Side by side too. Yeah.
No responsibility to the team. Like, they can say, I hate that guy. But you can't have an Irish team coming on saying, I hate Wales. Wales are the worst. Because your teammates will turn around and go, what are you doing? So that always, I think, limits a team sports person. Look, the golf one may well be good, but I don't know, Nathan, if you agree. They've definitely, if it's obviously so good and they're so confident in it, they've held back anything interesting in the trailer.
Are you saying that as people who are mad golf heads, though?
You see, I think that there's definitely that possibility that I'll find the tennis one more interesting than the golf one, because I don't know that much about the personalities. And with the trailer, maybe they're just saying, look, we got all the big names. We have most of the top 10 in the world. We have Ian Poulter, who people recognise and now know has gone to live. So we have them, and they're going to be a part of this, and that's the first selling point.
Yeah.
I want to see some characters to emerge during this, and again, the Gunter types who pre-Drive to Survive, nobody not involved around Formula 1 would have really known about or had an interest in. So, who are the agents? Who are the live guys on the range? Are they on this? Are they sort of been singled out? By the end of this, are we getting a real insight that we've never had before? And you do need a bit of gossip.
Like, big time.
You do need Thomas and Spieth talking about Brooks Koepka behind his back.
Yeah, for it to be real and authentic, and it's just increasingly now when you see just the sheer number of these, like, okay, they've all realised we can either make our sport really, really popular, or at worst we'll get a few quid. And I don't know. I wonder what the motivation was. Did Formula 1 even give too much thought to Drive to Survive? You get the sense they are almost, just go in there and do your thing, and they came away with the magic. Whereas a bit like reality TV contestants in season 2, 3, 4 and beyond, they're very aware of how the finished product will look.
They're like, Naughty Nick really got hung out to dry there on Big Brother. Not falling for that again.
Big Brother 2 was the last year of innocence, really.
The Newsround brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Good to get the Roy Keane story out of the way early, lads. That was it. Short and sweet. Wasn't Keane going to go with Kimmage first?
Oh, well, then why wouldn't that have happened?
Well,
I mean, Kimmage would have been open to going with Roy.
I'll have to find out. Or maybe
Before
maybe
Dunphy.
Kimmage is the next one.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I want to know Keane's ranking of these lads. Really
He'll
do.
give it sometime.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll tell us.
I can't imagine he took well to being turned down by Alistair Campbell.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff on his mind, I guess, at the time, even if he wasn't necessarily in government. The aftermath of that wasn't pretty.
What is going on, Richie?
The FAI has appointed Eileen Gleeson as head of women's and girls football. The former assistant to Republic of Ireland manager Vera Powell will be tasked with the development and growth of the women's game in Ireland. Gleeson holds a UEFA Pro licence and recently left her role as manager of Glasgow City, while she was also a league and cup winner with Peamount. Tony Elms has been appointed assistant to Vera Powell on a full-time basis, while Andrew Holt is the new performance analyst for the senior team. That's all ahead, of course, of their appearance at the World Cup later this year.
Yeah, this is all very positive, Joe. Investment, sustainable investment going in around the women's game in Ireland. Eileen Gleeson, obviously somebody very well respected who knows the game already from top to bottom. Even having a full-time assistant manager to Vera Powell so that Tom Eames can commit every minute of every day between now and the World Cup to thinking about it. And a performance analyst in there as well in Andrew Holt. So already you would have to believe that the success of qualifying for the World Cup is paying some long-term dividends.
For sure, it all feels very, very good. Look what they have achieved with just an experienced manager and limited support across the playing lives of these players. So imagine what the next generation could do with all that support. So really positive.
Is football tonight as well, Richie, in the Premier League?
There is, yeah. There's one game in the Premier League. Fulham have the chance to move above Liverpool in the table tonight if they win at home to Chelsea. They're without the suspended striker Alexander Mitrovic, their top scorer for the season. He's suspended. He's replaced by Vinicius in their front line. And João Felix makes a debut start for Chelsea. Kick-off at Craven Cottage is at 8 p.m. Chelsea back to a back three as well tonight, perhaps crucially.
Straight in. I guess they're paying so much for his 6 months that they might as well use him for every second they can.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really hard to know what to expect with Chelsea at all. John Giles very keen to talk about Graham Potter this evening and his comments about it being the toughest job in football and having a meeting with senior players, gathering around the four most experienced lads and deciding, let's give this a good go. I felt at the time Graham Potter should take this job. Big jobs don't come up like this very often. We've seen any amount of English managers go on a hot run of form and miss their time, but really in the last week or so it's felt a little bit like he's been out of his depth.
Yeah, I do think his public comments have been over scrutinised because the results have been so bad. I was listening to a podcast on The Athletic and they're positing the theory that he's just too nice. He's too normal. He's just too normal. I think some of it's gone a little too far. And if the results were good, I don't think we'd think anything of his general dispatches. But I guess to your point, Nathan, the out of the depth thing, it's hard to argue with when the results are so bad. And how close is he is the interesting question to fans turning on him and getting too toxic and no way back.
Singing Thomas Tuchel's name during the last game maybe is more a reflection on the club. And listen, out of his depth is probably harsh. He's not himself though. The way Chelsea are playing is not a reflection of the way he has gone through his career so far, the negativity that they've approached a lot of games with. And listen, they have endless injuries, and
it's catastrophic. The injury list.
You need your best players. They're missing Reece James and Ben Chilwell, who are up there as the best fullback partnership and are responsible for so many of their goals and their assists all season. They're missing N'Golo Kante, who, when he's on it, is arguably still the best midfielder in the Premier League, and they've no striker. That's not his fault. So it could just be wrong man, wrong place, wrong time. But you do hope that they stick with what they've said, which is this is a long-term project. Looking at that 11th night, it's all over the place. There's a few kids in there who've been thrown in again. There's João Felix, who just arrived in 2 days ago. It's just that bit of, does a more experienced manager just go in and I'm taking charge of this, rather than a bit of Graham Potter just hoping that they stick with him and give him the time and it'll all come right in a year.
Yeah, it's and there is a parallel, isn't there, with Frank Lampard, the more inexperienced manager who had a Chelsea squad which at the time looked incredibly imbalanced. And this is what was being said about this Chelsea squad when Lampard had it, that Chelsea squad, is that it's a bit of a mishmash, bit of a mess. hard now. It'd be hard. And the transfer embargo. I don't know. How's Frank meant to make sense of this? And Thomas Tuchel came in and in the space of one game had moved to a back three and turned them into a Champions League winning team. He made total sense of it instantly. So again, parallel universes. If Potter was to get the bullet, and as you asked the question, more experienced manager comes in, suddenly maybe he does make sense of it. But I do genuinely think in Potter's case, the injury list is prohibitive for almost anyone.
Evening, lads. If you're looking for a decent sports documentary, look no further than Sky's Jackie Stewart, a one-episode movie-length riveting watch and a true icon, says Martin and Galway. You seen it, Richie?
Haven't? No. We'll seek it out.
All right. It's turning quickly into one of those. We'll have a million recommendations for sports documentaries over the next 10 minutes. 53106 is the text number. Where we go next?
The Offaly manager Liam Kearns has questioned the integrity of the O'Byrne Cup despite reaching a semi-final against Louth. The faithful county beat a youthful Dublin 11 points to 8 last night at Parnell Park, but Kearns was unhappy with the decisions made by their semi-final opponents this week.
I'll be honest with you, if I could now, I'd drop out of the competition. This is our third game in 8 days. And I don't know what's going on with the Leinster Council. I mean, the fact that Louth were able to withdraw from their final game, they should have been playing tonight, and they withdrew from it. And now they've had a week's rest, and we're going to play our third game in 8 days. The integrity of the competition is very much compromised as far as I'm concerned.
I think the 3 games in 8 days, it was the most miserable night last night, soaking wet. Thinking the Loud lads are sitting at home in front of the fire and we're out here going through this nonsense, and now we got to go again at the weekend in a competition that we don't really just want to get the lads some game time, not get any injuries. A season that's going to have the most important league there's ever been.
It's had its day, hasn't it?
Well,
with the new calendar,
they seem to have got more important over the last couple of years again, that we're spending more time talking about them and wondering what teams are doing, and maybe there's such a turnover of managers that they've sort of lost their pre-season feel weirdly. That
maybe it's
the fact that the league seems to start earlier than ever.
I don't know. You look at that Dublin side last night, and you look at certain teams that have been put out. The Kerry ones, there are teams at that level that don't take these competitions. In terms of wanting to win them,
Richie was
they don't take them seriously. Never. I'm pretty much, I could have been, but I don't know if these competitions are kept just because there's names attached to them and there's a bit of medium-term history about them. I think that's a lot to do with it. There's a very solid argument looking at the way a lot of teams approach them.
Yeah.
To just ditch them, let them organise their own challenge matches and move on with things.
Big time. And the worst part as well is, as Richie said there, it was a youthful Dublin. I mean, the majority of the O'Byrne Cup players are also playing Sigerson. So, you're just flogging young lads as well. It's too intense all at once in January.
So Davy Russell had great plans for the coming years, take a few weekend breaks, maybe travel the world, and then he sat down last Sunday with Joe Molloy and thought, actually retirement is not what I thought it was going to be. I cannot go through another Sunday like this. And he's back. The reverse Sheehan, it's been called.
Yeah, John Molloy with Tour Milk, it appears. Davy Russell performed a dramatic U-turn last night to come to the aid of trainer Gordon Elliott. With Jack Kennedy, sidelined with a broken leg, Russell has decided to come out of retirement to take Kennedy's vacant rides. Russell had only confirmed his retirement a week before Christmas, but could continue riding for Elliott through to Cheltenham.
Do you get any sense of this, Joe?
I did say to him, actually, the last question was, you're going to get bored. You'll do a U-turn here and, I'll see you at Cheltenham 2024. And he was like, no, honestly, I don't think so. So, David Russell's a liar. Obviously, he's ruined the retirement interview I did with him. I tell you what is interesting in the interview. He had known, obviously, so he broke his neck in 2020. Most people thought, well, Davy, retire. You're a legend. It's done. And he really wanted to come back and go out on his own terms. So for much of the last 6, 7, 8 months, he knew that he was heading towards retirement pretty much at the end of the calendar year. And because I asked him in the interview, are you in decline as a writer? Has the quality of your writing gone down? And he said, it's funny you say that, because over this last year, knowing that the end is coming, I haven't made even a scintilla of a mistake. I've been perfection. He said, I've never wrote better. It's been like, pressure's off. I've stopped. I've smelt the roses. I'm like patting, the kids' heads when I'm walking into the parade ring and they're looking for, the jockey to acknowledge them, which I never would have done before. And it's been beautiful. So I'm fascinated to see if Davy Russell continues the stopping to smell the roses approach, or if he goes back to hard-nosed pushing children out of the way.
So Davy Russell goes to Cheltenham, ends up as leading jockey. Is that the grand finale for a second time?
Be unbelievable. His record there is excellent as well. So he was champion jockey in 18, and here, how's this for consistency? Obviously, I have all these figures in my head as of Sunday. From his first Cheltenham winner in 06 to 2020, he had a winner every single year except 19. And post-war, he is 4th on the all-time list of Cheltenham jockeys. So he's top there.
Well, all that information will come in really handy in a few months' time again. All the questions you didn't get time to ask. We got time for a couple more stories, Richie?
Yeah, Manchester United are going to reject any request from Nottingham Forest to allow Dean Henderson play in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Henderson saved penalties from Ruben Neves and Joe Hodge last night to book Forest's first League Cup semi-final place since 1992. But as Henderson is on loan from United, he's barred from playing against his parent club. That is unless they agree to a request from Forest, which, according to the Manchester Evening News, is not going to happen.
Fair enough. They'd look a little bit silly if it goes to penalties and Dean Henderson ends up saving the penalties that knock Manchester United out of the cup.
True.
He's the only thing that's been keeping Forest in it a lot of the way through, though. He is probably their best player so far this season.
Some snooker this evening?
Mark Williams produced a century break to win the deciding frame of his Masters quarter-final with Ronnie O'Sullivan. Williams had trailed even by 3 frames to nil at one point, but secured his first ever win over O'Sullivan in almost 9 years. This evening we'll see Jack Lazowski take on Hossein Fafay. That match is just underway.
All right, we got to leave it there. Joe, thank you.
All right, fellas.
Richie, thanks as always.
Nice, lads.
Time for the cash machine.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
So Friday 13th could be very lucky for someone. 3 people have missed out on the chance to win huge amounts of money, and we've got another rollover. To get involved, here's the number you need to know. €50,535.91. Text play to 57557. That's 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make that call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. Tell him the exact